Topic two today, it was like Christmas for college basketball fans because you came out with your Trapezoid of Excellence this week, first rendition this year, I believe. So, for any of our listeners who are unfamiliar with this, can you just give some background exactly on what this is and why you do this every year?
Yeah, I do it for no reason. I'm just kidding. The Trapezoid of Excellence was dawned and birthed out of literally nothing, out of me messing around on CBB Analytics site where you can like basically plot teams based on a bunch of stats. And I always just like 2 years ago, I was just trying to find. I go in the stats chart and plotting team scatter chart tool and just try to find trends from like the past tournaments. And it was like I want to say December or January. I'm just trying to figure out ways to find teams that historically succeed in March. And I think I was watching an Alabama game or someone like that, and I was like, God, they play so fast. And I looked into some tempo, and then I was like, let me put it up on a chart and let me just um, see what it looks like. And I put up pace. I just put up overall efficiency, and I was like, interesting. Like I started to notice some matchup things of teams who play really fast and really slow when they play each other. Then I started looking into it, and I was like, okay, like these teams seem like they're the best teams in the country. And then I looked back historically to see that and what the trapezoid basically is a theory with historical proof that the more adaptable you are in your style and pace, the better suited you are to win at the highest level in March. Now, I think people always forget that part about the trapezoid. They think like Alabama, I hate Alabama. Like, no, I'm just saying they can't win a national championship the way they play. And they have gotten far every year, but they've hit a wall. And they hit walls against teams like Duke and teams that are adaptable and play slower and take them out of their game. So basically, the faster or slower you play, the better you have to be at that to be able to win a national championship and even go to the Final Four and just at the highest level. Because if you think about it, the theory, why I say theoretically, you're playing teams that aren't who you are and aren't who you're used to playing in conference now because you're playing obviously non-con games. You're playing teams in different regions and neutral sites of different styles on back-to-back, so you don't know who you're going to play sometimes in 2 days until you get them and you win your game. So being adaptable is super important, and the last few years have shown that those teams, Duke last year and Auburn, the entire Final Four last year was they're all one seeds obviously, but basically the more adaptable you are, the better suited you are to win a national championship. Again, I like the teams that play fast and slow, especially for mid majors, because they're very different and they're outliers. So you get an outlier and you're like, oh my God, we like Drake is a great example last year. They were the slowest team in the country, and Mizzou is fast, a fast paced team. They get Drake and they're like, we have not played against this in the SEC, and we did not prepare for this. And then they got dragged into that game, and they could never win that game. So it's not to say that those teams are bad that aren't in it, just to say to win at the highest level, be adaptable.
Yeah, that's a very interesting concept. And I think I've interpreted this and watched you do this for years without even fully understanding what it meant until I just got that background from you.
There you
So
go.
hopefully that gave some insight to others just like me. Is there any, when you were doing the research for this, like going back years, are there any teams that like have bucked this hypothesis? Like, I guess the first one that comes to mind for me is like, were the Virginia teams too slow for this?
I think that I have to go back. I think that they were outside of it, and
Okay.
they're like the outlier for sure. They also still prove the theory of like if you're going to be that slow, you have to be amazing. Houston's kind of like that too. They've been a little faster possession wise.
Yeah.
It also shifts. Like that's the biggest thing, and honestly, the hardest part for me is that I'm honest about it. I don't have like hard data points that it has to be at this because it has to shift for national averages of pace. Like if everyone's playing faster, it has to shift with that. It can't just shift to be what it was historically because the game changes over years, right?
Yeah.
Um, Virginia's the one team that's obviously the crazy outlier. People even argue they shouldn't have won the national championship, to be honest, that year. But they did win, and if you're going to be slow or fast, you got to be that good at it.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you are looking for a visual on this, by the way, find it on Ryan Hammer's profile on Twitter. You'll see it right there if you scroll down a little bit, and I'm sure this is probably all over people's timelines anyway. But so looking at this, I guess is because there's some that are right on the verge. If they get a little bit overlap, are you calling them in the trapezoid?
So technically, no. Like the data point is within the middle of the logo. So like Arizona is out. I think Illinois is like just out. Kentucky, I don't want to talk about it. I don't understand it either. Kentucky's 20 on Ken Palm. Like call us in a month if they keep losing like this, then they'll be nowhere near it. But um, no, they're technically out of it. Again, it's not vague. There are certain harder variances I use to try to draw it and within the national averages and stuff, but Arizona, yes, just out, but again, this is December, so
Yeah. Some just observations like team specific for me, maybe like who am I surprised one way or the other on here.
sure.
This felt like a good potential data point for BYU believers.
I
Right
love
in the
them.
heart of this, and a team that is kind
Yeah.
of not discussed to the same level of like the favorites, the Dukes, the Arizonas, the Michigans. In terms of teams that are right in the middle of this, you've got UConn, Duke, Iowa State, BYU, Gonzaga, Michigan, and Michigan State are on polar opposite ends of the tempo spectrum, but they're in here. Louisville, Kentucky, Arizona, and Illinois all close. Vanderbilt is also snug in there. Are you buying Vanderbilt as a legitimate national title team?
I don't think that they're a national title contender. I think they've been unbelievable. They haven't hashtag played a lot of teams, um, but they are very good. They also don't really play tough teams until like Alabama, I think, on the new year. So like
Yeah.
they might be number 8, 7, or 8 in the country going to play against Alabama at home, and they could even win that game because that's the style they like to play. I have my doubts that they're a national title contender because they're offense, 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 but I expected them to be faster paced on here, so I'll give them credit for that. Are
Yep.
you in on them being a title contender or no?
I don't think I am, and I'm not trying to like it's not fun to come on with like the quote unquote Cinderella team. They're not Cinderella, they're an SEC team, but right?
Yeah.
This is like the surprising feel good story of the sport this year. It's not fun to like come on and be like, I don't believe in it. I love the way they play, and I like this makeup. I think Mark Byington's amazing. I hope they get Tyron Stokes. That would be hilarious. But no, to me as we scroll through this, I'm ready to see them play a top 30 opponent for the first time this year and see if
Yeah,
it
that's
holds.
crazy. That's crazy. Again, you want to say you play who you play, but you also control your schedule. So
Right.
I
Right.
don't know.
And
Yeah.
they've done a good job getting to where they've gotten, but SEC play is calling for sure. Maybe I don't know, I don't want to call it pushback, but the teams that once you understand the trapezoid, it's not surprising they're outside of it, but great championship contender teams that are not in the trapezoid this year. Both Purdue and Houston too slow, and also right now too bad of a net rating adjusted
Just
for
not good.
opponents.
Just not good enough. So this, I also only use like data from this season. Like the Ken Palm will use predictive stuff still, I think, in some capacity, and it is predictive. It's obviously, of course, it is, but preseason predictive, and influences where Houston's like they just haven't been good enough. Like we can agree that right now. Like they haven't
Yeah.
been. Kelvin Sampson agrees too. He said the same thing. Like he was like, we haven't been nowhere near good enough, but we're gonna get better and better with the freshmen. And Purdue it was one game, but also what they've played 9 games. So that's more than 10% of your entire season. And you lose by whatever at home, like even to a good team, that's going to tank you down a little bit also. But they have been playing super, super slow on the national scale. That will hold. So they're going to have to really pump. Also, to be fair, where they are now, is normally a title contender. Like that's where Houston was last year in the trap, but the trapezoid was just lower because
Yeah.
you didn't have teams at of over 40 net rating. Like this is a ridiculous level that the sport has never seen before.
Yeah.
So grain of salt, if they play exactly how they do now, they should be in it by the time March comes around.
Yeah, a lot can change. We expect Purdue to get better, and I don't know, things can come around for sure. The Houston plot point's interesting. Without the predictives, they are dead on where Villanova and Iowa are right now. But that, when you think about it, like that's the level they've played to.
Exactly. I don't think it's wrong at all, right? Like they went to overtime with Syracuse, they lost to Tennessee, and both those teams don't look great.
Yeah,
So
it's kind of crazy. You saw Purdue in person. Are you still buying this team as a national title contender?
yeah, on the fringe on the back end of it, but I wouldn't. I think this like they're not 30 point or 20 whatever points worse than Iowa State. Um, I think it showed some really exploited some really big vulnerabilities,
Yeah,
and that is what I worry about. Where defensively they're terrible attacking ball screens, and then offensively I worry that like Braden isn't this ISO scorer, this ISO player, right? TKR and Fletch obviously aren't that either. Their offense is so good and so sound. That's why it was the number one offense in the country. I worry when someone's off or you're playing against a Houston or an Iowa State or really good defense like that. What are you gonna do? Like where you have to take over games. Braden was actually playing well, I thought, for a majority of the game. But like, what is
was.
he supposed to do? He's a pass first player. He's a point guard. He's not this prolific scorer. So like that worries me a little bit on the offensive end. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean you saw them at their worst, right? It's kind of like what they say about marriage. You got to love me at my worst to get me at my best. And
interesting.
I'm with you. I think that's the worst you'll ever see Purdue. it was a pretty big anomaly. I thought those guys kind of almost sunk their shoulders and were like, I can't believe a team's doing
Yeah.
this to us at home. And that won't happen again. They'll be more mentally locked in and in the state of Indiana, right? For the Final Four potentially. It just feels like
Hopefully.
destiny they'll end up getting there. But
There was a
shame.
moment too, by the way, when I was standing on the court the entire game. Braden, like I think they turned the ball over early in the second half again, and like it was just like one of those stupid turnovers out of bounds, and he just like looked around and like I don't blame him. I like he's a vet, but like, I don't. He just looked around. He like didn't know what to do, and he was like kind of like went like that, and I was like, yeah, they're not winning this game. There's no way.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting point too. When you look back at last year, I've talked so much about the psychology of this team and their identity in the post Edie era. Everyone on this core spent 2 years being the team to beat in the sport, the most
Yeah,
scrutinized, the most number one seed, all of it. And they always obviously had Edie to power them through it and not taking anything away from these three. But I think they came into last year very much still with the we're the team to beat mentality. And when it got to the point where they realized they weren't the team to beat, they sort of just exhaled and couldn't believe it.
yeah,
And then you immediately refresh this year again, team to beat, preseason number one, all these expectations. It's got to be jarring. I know Braden's told us as much. They're not paying attention to the other Big Ten teams,
yeah,
but you're paying attention to what's happening in front of you. And it's got to be jarring to look up and be like, oh my God, we're down 20. We're supposed to be the number one team. How is this happening? I felt that visibly from those three in that game. And they've got to get over that and figure out ways to combat it going forward.
yeah, for sure.
So we'll see. All right, good work on the trapezoid. As always, make sure everybody goes and follows Ryan Hammer.